Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's me, Legal Vices, and we are here on Maritime Monday. So you know what that means. That means it's our Maritime Monday intros.
Mayday, Mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
And
look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
There we go. Now we got that out of our system. Those are our Maritime Monday intros. Welcome. Today, obviously, we're going to be talking about the Titan submersible implosion accident. I'm sure lots of people are coming here looking for answers, looking for definitive statements, but straight out of the gate, I've got to tell you, we don't have any. Why not? Because literally we don't know anything. We know it went down. We know some bad stuff happened, and we know they didn't come up. That's kind of it. But what we can do is we can offer a little bit of insight into what's been going on. I know it's been done to death on other sites, but I hope to be able to give you a little bit more of an inside scoop on perhaps some of the legal aspects of this as we go along. It's hopefully a once in a lifetime thing. Hopefully this is something that we will learn so much from that it will dissuade the phonies and the copycats and the other people looking to cut corners and whatnot. And it will improve the actual underwater tourism safety. So let's go through just a little bit of this and see what happened. First of all, before we do that, just want to say special thanks to SJJ, who's been a member for 5 months of the Clean and Sober crew. Said she'll be on the rewatch squad, and thank you so much, SJJ. Anybody that's here watching this, we're doing it live now, but if you come back and you're watching a replay of this, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, as well as if you're so inclined, there also is a super thanks button, but not required. And Lincoln Kane, it looks like Lincoln Kane, the sneaky little bugger, has dropped off 5 Legal Vices memberships earlier today. So if any of you happen to wake up and find yourself with a Legal Vices membership from Lincoln Kane, it seems Marta C., Leovgilid, Rex Visagotharum, and James Beaver, all the marbles, and WV were the lucky recipients of those Lincoln Kane gifted memberships. Thank you so much for everybody for being here. Thank you, Mod, for doing your things. Everybody do the like and subscribe thing. That would be deeply, deeply appreciated. So that we've got about 45 minutes to get through most of this. We've got other things to do at the end of this. We'll be automatically fed over to my upcoming trial coverage for the YNW Melly murder trial. That's coming up in about 45 minutes. So we don't really have a lot of time to chit-chat, I guess. We need to get straight into this. Oh, looks like there's been a Lincoln Kane raid of sorts. All right. Thank you so much for the people coming from Lincoln Kane, who we just thanked for the 5 Legal Vices membership. Great to have you all here. Please do all the YouTube-y stuff. And Blue Varo, who's been a member of the Clean and Sober crew for 3 months. Thank you so much for your little message there that popped up. All right. Where do we start? All right, one place I think we need to start is last week. Last week we did, on Maritime Monday, we talked about the capsizing and sinking of a vessel full of refugees off the coast of Greece. They're projecting that upwards of 600 deaths. 600 people died in that capsizing. How many of you, if you didn't see Maritime Monday last week, how many of you knew about this incident happening? How many of you knew from news reports, from wall to wall, sun up to sundown coverage that there were 600 people drowning off the coast of Greece? I expressed a little bit of dismay that a few rich billionaires get all of the coverage, and we don't talk about the loss of 600 lives. And it's interesting that I wasn't the only one that found that a bit odd. Well, not odd, I wasn't really surprised. I don't even know what the right word is. Just a bit normal, maybe. John Cusack also mentioned this. And he took a bit of flack for it, but other people were were in agreement with him. So let's just kind of look at let's compare and contrast here. Titanic sub. John Cusack sparks debate after saying no one cares when refugees capsize. Well, that's pretty much what I just said. So the actor compared the way people responding to the missing Titanic submersible and refugees capsizing. John Cusack has sparked debate after suggesting that no one cares when refugee boats capsize, but that things are different when it comes to the lost Titanic submersible. The sub went missing in the Atlantic on an underwater journey to the wreck of the Titanic with 5 people on board. This is, of course, while the search was still going on. A large search is underway with experts predicting that the vessel will soon run out of oxygen. As we found out, and as we're going to discuss a little bit later, they never ran out of oxygen. They ran out of existence, really. Commenting on the search on Twitter, Cusack appeared to reference the migrant boat that recently sank off Greece, leaving 78 dead and hundreds missing. 600s missing. Out of 700 plus, they rescued, I think, a little over 100. So that leaves 700 minus the 100, 600 dead. All I can think is refugees capsize, no one cares. Some billionaires go on a joyride, go missing. It seems like multiple navies are instantly searching, the 56-year-old posted. Now, see, that's the thing we talked about last week as well. This literally happened. This capsizing, sinking, and the deaths of 600 people happened literally under the nose of the Greek Coast Guard. Many people chimed in to agree with the actor, who is known for such films as 16 Candles and Being John Malkovich. One person tweeted that it was infuriating, and another said it's really, really sad when it's right in front of you. Money people mean more than anyone else. I've just got done saying the right thing, saying the same thing, said one fan. 5 billionaires get lost in a excrementy submersible on a $250K per person trip to see the Titanic, and half of the U.S. Coast Guard gets mobilized to find them. And the story continues, where it's pretty much just everyone agreeing how we always do. I don't really like when the news stories are nothing but regurgitation of Twitter and TikTok answers, but I wasn't the only one that sort of found this discrepancy a little bit concerning, that we go and we have so many people die and nobody really cares, but we have some rich people on a joyride, and then we're just glued to the coverage. Well, that leads us to today, and we've got a few things to talk about here. Where to begin? I suppose we should begin at the beginning. That's a very good place to start. Imagine my surprise this morning when I woke up and I realized that when I was going to go search for some documents that I knew existed, when I found out that the OceanGate website has been taken offline. It's gone. It's non-existent. 404 all the way. Thankfully, I happened to download the spec sheet for the Titan before they pulled it offline. So let me see. Here we go. Let's bring this up. Let's see. I mean, we've all talked about. We've seen the video of them making it, wrapping the carbon fiber tapes and what around it and whatnot, and epoxying this dome here onto it. We've seen the videos, but this is the spec sheet for the Titan 5-person submersible. OceanGate for charter and exploration travel. It's the Titan manned submersible. Titan is a Cyclops-class manned submersible designed to take 5 people to the depths of 4,000 meters, 13,123 feet. For site survey and inspection, research and data collection, film and media production, and deep sea testing of hardware and software. Designed and built by OceanGate Inc., Titan provides a unique solution to the growing need for direct human observation, inspection, and exploration of the deep ocean. Well, they've got their little launch and recovery platform that it sits on. This is the launch and recovery platform here on the bottom right. That gets hauled up onto a ship. It goes down, it disengages, and it goes off and does its little exploration and hopefully comes back. But the specifications for this thing are very interesting. 5 persons, 1 pilot, and 4 crew. Depth 4,000 meters. Now, lots of people have brought this to my attention, and I was aware of it from the beginning, but emails, direct messages and whatnot. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know all of the details of the testing, but there's the maximum specs, the operational specs, and the testing specs. If I'm correct, but there's 3 different specs, and what you want is the maximum load, the operational level to be much lower than your maximum. So you want to be, this is our maximum. This is the absolute maximum this vehicle can take. But our operation is going to be handled much lower than that. So you have the safety measures in place. You don't operate your equipment at the absolute max specs. Let's get rid of that. Here's the dimensions. It's 22 feet by 9.2 feet by 8.3 feet. 670 centimeters by 280 centimeters by 250 centimeters. Has a payload of 685 kilograms. That's 1,510 pounds. So as you may have seen from some of the other videos, they were actually weighing everybody with what you're going to carry with you on there. So, I mean, even if it's down to a pen or a pencil, you keep that pen and pencil on you when you're being weighed. The speed 3 knots, that's incredibly slow. That's why it sort of takes 2. Well, then you have the compression thing. It takes 2 to 2.5 hours. Took 2 to 2.5 hours to get from the surface down to the 2.5 mile range where the Titanic was. And it's got a little bit of propulsion, 2 vertical, 2 horizontal thrusters. 96 hours for 96 hours of air of life support, they call it, for a crew of 5. And they've got a Teledyne Blue View 2D sonar, which is actually pretty good. And no, Teledyne Doppler velocity log. Teledyne makes some great equipment. So kudos to them for getting a Teledyne system at least. And then it's got the lighting. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the lighting here. 4 deep sea power and lights, LED sea lights, 40,000 lumens total output. Well, it might be outside, but what about inside? Inside, I don't know if you've seen the videos, but like literally the inside, the lighting was inside. He said he was proud that he got it from Camping World and didn't have to pay a lot of money for it. We'll talk about that also a little bit later. And then there's a couple of cameras and there's other things. This is the spec sheet for the submersible. All right, so that's what it looks like on the outside. Before we jump here into the inside of what it looks like, let's address some of the super chats here. Different situations. The refugees were lost. We knew they were lost. The sub was a race against time. If it had been known they were dead on day 1, it would not have been such a big story. Well, we're going to get there. Don't worry, we're going to get there. Spoiler alert. We knew they were gone, reportedly, about 2 hours after they left. We'll get to that. And a little bit sleepy. If the immigrants sank over the Titanic, it would be massive news too. Titanic adds so much to media drama. Right. But and again, unlike the refugees weren't necessarily lost. It's just that the rescue operations were not done very well. The Greek Coast Guard was right there when it happened. They were minutes away. But anyway, we're not going to get sidetracked too far on that. But we'll talk about when we knew reportedly that there had been an implosion and they were gone. Well, let's first take a look at the inside of the Titan. It's a quick little video here.
We are inside the submersible Titan, which is a carbon fiber and titanium sub that can go to the depths of the Titanic. Hi, my name is Stockton Rush. I'm the CEO and founder of OceanGate. Let's take a look at Titan.
So you'll notice this is...
So we're coming in.
As they go in, this is the only entry or exit from this place. And you can see some of the bolt holes here. This thing is locked in place. This door is locked and bolted shut from the outside with 17 bolts.
So we're coming into the sub. This is the only toilet available on a deep diving submersible. Best seat in the house. You can look out the viewport. We put a privacy screen in, turn up the music. And,
yeah, that's kind of gross.
Very popular.
This is it. 2 home computers 2 regular old keyboards, and a floor.
We have our control screen here, our sonar screen here, and we can put any image we want in the back. We've taken a completely new approach to the sub design, and it's all
There we go. That's the joystick we've heard so much about.
Game controller and these touch screens. So if you want to go forward, you press forward. If you want to go back, you go back. Turn left, turn right, go down, go up. And it's Bluetooth, so I can hand it to anybody. And it's meant for a 16-year-old to throw it around, and super durable. We keep a couple of spares on board just in case.
All right, and as other people have pointed out, what could possibly go wrong with that? You've got a couple of spares, right? Okay. It's wireless. What happens if you lose your connection? What happens if you lose your Bluetooth connection to the maneuverability? What happens if the batteries die? have we brought extras? We don't know. Again, and as other people have pointed out, I do not like the fact it was wireless. What's the problem of having it wired? I don't know.
This is the second year we've been out to the Titanic.
And there's the bolts there on the outside
again. In 5 8-day missions. We did about 10 dives to the wreck site of the Titanic, and we did an extra dive on an undiscovered reef that we found. Completely privately funded operation, and we're funded by, we call mission specialists, who help support the mission. So they take quite a bit of money to come and join us. Years ago,
and that's where I have another problem. These tourists, they're called mission specialists. They're tourists. I don't know what the word specialist means to you guys, but specialist to me means an actual specialist. You know, you go, ooh, here's my 250,000. Give me an important sounding title so I can sound really cool. Maybe that's what it was for. I don't know. Yeah, all of the tourists were called mission specialists. Whether they just sat there and stared out the window or whatever they did, they were mission specialists.
The Russians took tourists out to the Titanic, and it was just sort of a look and see thing. We really are focusing on the science around it. We want to document what the wreck is like now, and also try to predict what it'll be like in the future. It's continuing to decay, and it seems to be accelerating. It's being eaten by a bacteria, so it's literally being eaten by the ocean. It's not rusting away. So these things that are called rusticles are actually the byproduct of a bacteria that eats the iron. And as it does that, these decks are collapsing. The promenade deck continues to collapse forward. We saw some of the railing is starting to lose its structural strength, which is really a sad thing. That's when it's going to stop looking like the Titanic. The interest in the Titanic is the reason we go there, because people are willing to fund this kind of exploration and science, and that gives a completely different research component that almost nowhere else in the deep ocean can you get funding to go back every year for decades and see how coral reefs develop and see how metals decay and see how currents change. I mean, that just, you can't justify that. No government will pay for that. Nobody wants to go back to just some old reef, but people do want to go back to the Titanic. And that's why we go, is because people want to go.
Well, so that looks okay, doesn't it? You would go in there, wouldn't you? What could possibly go wrong with that? It's literally a tube. It's a cylinder with 2 computer monitors, 2 keyboards, and a joystick. So what's the problem? What's the problem with all of that? Well, let's take another look here. Let's look at how this was different than other submersibles out there. Let's bring up this. This is another short video just showing some of the differences.
Amid the shock of loss lie questions about how and why the Titan disappeared. And foremost among them is a single query. Was this ever safe? The submersible was never certified for use, but a loophole allowed it to operate at the Titanic wreck site, as in these previous missions, because these are international waters.
Now we're going to talk a little bit about, again, we've mentioned it in the other two videos I've done, but we're going to talk a little bit more about the classification and certification of this in just a little bit.
5 years ago, the Marine Technology Society wrote to OceanGate saying it feared the company's experimental approach could result in negative outcomes from minor to catastrophic. It was a dispute that was never resolved and still haunts one of the writers of that letter.
To do 5 passengers,
And we're going to read that letter.
it does push the envelope, and you've got to do the numbers right. OceanGate was taking a strategy of, well, we intentionally break the rules because we can do it better and faster. It leaves us in a very,
and that's might come back to haunt him as
all
well.
of
Those
us in
statements
this
that we,
technical field are
break the
sincerely
rules.
driven by a deep duty of care, and unfortunately, that takes time.
The submersible industry is a thriving one. This Dutch company sells models for exploration, research, and personal use. Unlike the Titan vessel, these all have to pass a long...
I don't know. Are you seeing any difference in the interior of this submersible and the one we just watched from OceanGate? I don't know. What do you think? Little difference between the Titan and this? Yeah, there's a little bit of a difference.
Process of safety checks before they can be sold.
Certify the design, they certify the materials, and they will inspect every stage of the build. And once a submarine is ready, we will go with them to the actual diving depth of these submarines and test every safety system again and again for each submarine. And by the time we're finished, we'll have a half container load of paperwork.
These machines don't go anywhere near the depth of Titan. They're designed to fall hundreds, not thousands of meters. But they do tell us something about what it must have been like on board.
This submersible is very different from Titan. It's got much better communications. It's more modern. You've got these acrylic screens so you can see outside. But a big similarity are the dimensions. Put 5 people in here and it will feel cramped. You can't even stand up straight. Now that's all right for a couple of hours, but for a few days, that would be extremely unpleasant.
For the moment, this is an industry shocked by what it's seeing and hearing, but it also wants to know what went wrong and why. Adam Parsons, Sky News in the Netherlands.
Yeah, so that's just one glimpse. And then we've also seen the inside of the submersible that James Cameron went down to the Titanic in, and also to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. I mean, this other submersible has gone down to the deepest point in all 5 oceans, and it looks like a freaking spaceship inside of it. It's not just a tube with an end cap on it. And I mean, that's one of the things that people have questioned a lot. A lot of people have questioned the actual design of these ships. Most of these deep sea submersibles, these deep sea vessels, are spherical because of the way that the atmospheric pressure and the pressure of the ocean affect the design. I'm not an engineer, so I just know that it's much safer to have it spherical rather than pill shaped, which is what the Titan was. And we got a couple of comments through here, and then we'll jump on over into the next little thing I wanted to talk about. And this is one of them. Mad says, is carbon fiber strong but fragile? So if they drive into something, then it will break or not? Well, see, that's the problem. I mean, generally, carbon fiber is lighter. It's obviously lighter than steel. It can be stronger, but what we don't know is what the pressure, what pressures that these things, that the carbon fiber wrapped object faces at 2.5 miles below the surface of the ocean repeatedly, because it's gone up and down several times. We don't know what effect that would have over time with the salt water, the pressures, the constant expansion and contraction. We don't know why, because they didn't test it. They didn't do these safety tests. They didn't do these stress tests. They didn't do this over a long period of time. So we don't know the answer to that question. And Wolfram, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Subbrief pointed out that the mounts for the flat screens were screwed into the interior hull. Yeah, that was on the video he had out earlier today. which is, but even though they were screwed onto the interior of the hull, we don't know if that was the carbon fiber itself. If it was the carbon fiber itself, that could be problematic because just any flaw in that carbon fiber could have resulted in this implosion. I would like to think and hope that it was just bolted onto some sort of steel, sheet metal or steel plating or aluminum plating or whatever, and there was dead space before you got to the hull, or some sort of insulation before you got to the hull of the ship itself. So yeah, that we don't know if it was screwed directly into the carbon fiber. I hope it wasn't, but if it was, this is exactly how surprised I'd be. Not at all. But let's just hope it wasn't. With all the stupidity that's gone on, I just hope it wouldn't be that stupid. A little bit sleepy. Thank you so much for your super chat. Twit tried to reinvent the wheel using a boulder because boulders are cheaper. Talking about the crew, referring to them as mission specialists. Robin Knowles says, is it a tax cut that way? Lamau. Actually, it may, if we get into the lawsuits, work out in favor of these people, because it's a whole thing we just can't get into now. If they're considered crew members under the Jones Act in the U.S., then that might actually help them get additional payouts for this. It may, it's just saying that's way beyond what we have time to even scratch the surface of today. But we're going to continue to revisit this over the next few weeks. So we'll have plenty of time to discuss things. Brian, thank you so much for your super chat. I wouldn't want to go in the ocean in something the size of a whale suppository. Yeah, it's not a large thing. Is there any liability because they all signed agreements? Well, that's one thing we definitely are going to talk about here in a bit. Nicholas Starov said that already on day 2, I had a sinking feeling about the Titan. Thanks, Nicholas. Thanks. All right. Well, again, we've been talking about safety, and this isn't a new thing. The safety concerns on the Titan have been around since 2017, 2018. And this article kind of summarizes those issues. Let me bring this up here a little bit. That's not going to work, is it? Darn it. Wanted to have it be a little more intimate here, but maybe if we do it like this. There we go. This is a missing Titanic submaker Ocean Gate faced allegations about hull safety as early as 2018. Here's the basic facts of this thing. Former employee of Ocean Gate, the company whose submersible is now missing after diving towards the wreckage of the Titanic, warned in 2018. So let's count that out. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 5 years ago, that the sub's safety could be compromised by poor quality control and safety protocols that paying passengers would not be aware of. Keep that in mind, that paying passengers would not be aware of. That is part of the argument when we deal with the waivers. David Lockridge, Ocean Gate's former director of marine operations, alleged in August 2018 court filings that he was wrongfully terminated after raising concerns about the company's refusal to conduct critical, non-destructive testing of the experimental design of the Titan, the submersible that went missing Sunday. The filing said that after Ocean Gate CEO Stockton Rutch and Lockridge asked Lockridge to do a quality inspection of the submersible, Lockridge developed grave concerns about a lack of non-destructive testing performed on the hull of the Titan. While completing the inspection, Lockridge said he asked coworkers if anyone had formally scanned the materials being used to secure the vessel from the high-pressure environment. Again, have they scanned these to see if there's even the slightest little flaw in these, to check all of the things you would need to check about the material you're using itself? Lockridge said he was told that no such scans had been done. Instead, he said sound-based systems would check for flaws in the hull in real time in order to detect issues. And I mean, that's something that they do to test the internal linings of chemical tanker holds and things like that. The different barriers between things. They'll actually run sound tests. They'll use sound waves to see if there's any anomalies. And I guess that's what they were doing here rather than scanning the actual material itself. Lockridge said that while he was met with hostility and denial of access to the necessary documentation while completing the inspection report, he submitted it on January 18, 2018. The next day, he said he spoke before company leadership, including Rush, Bonnie Carl, the human resources director, Tony Nissen, the engineering director, and Scott Griffith, the operations director, and raised his concerns. And what did he get for that? Lockridge said he recommended OceanGate voluntarily seek out regulation and classification through an agency such as the American Bureau of Shipping. And that's one of the big classification societies in the world. They're the ones that inspect it. We've talked about it before. The classification societies will crawl all over that thing, inspect minutia, and you'd say, to get classified, to get certified, you got to do this, 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 and this. Has to pass this test, meet these requirements, et cetera, et cetera. ABS, American Bureau of Shipping, is one. DNV, GL. That's two classification companies. One from Norway, one from Germany combined. There's a Das Norse Veritas, I believe is what it was. And then Germanischer Lloyd. They combined together. Let me see what DNV was. I just call it DNV. DNV GL. Should have had this ready to go. Can't think. All right. It's going to take too much time to find this. But anyway, it's a Norwegian classification society and Germanischer Lloyd, a German one. Det Norsk Veritas is what it was. Det Norsk Veritas and Germanischer Lloyd. They combined a few years ago to create this one. And those are the two big classification societies that people commonly use. But going back to this article here, they said you should go through these agencies like ABS or DNVGL and do these things, which the filings say inspects and certifies submersibles with assurance tests and satisfy industry standard safety controls. But Lockridge said that after the meeting, he was fired. So I love this when you do these things. You say, okay, I want you to go out and do this testing and find out if there's anything wrong. Yep, there's something wrong. We need to fix it. This is pretty serious. You're fired. But Lockridge said that after the meeting, he was fired. OceanGate gave Lockridge approximately 10 minutes to immediately clear out his desk and exit the premises. A court filing said, yes, he sued them. They countersued. They sued. He countersued. There was lawsuits going back and forth, but they eventually settled. The paying passengers would not be aware and would not be informed of this experimental design, the lack of non-destructive testing of the hull, or that whole hazardous flammable materials were being used within the submersible, the filing says. It's unclear whether Lockridge's concerns were ever addressed or whether these scans occurred at a later date. Lockridge's allegations were filed as a countersuit against OceanGate, which had accused him of breach of contract, fraud, and revealing trade secrets. Lockridge denied all of the charges. The case was settled out of court in November 2018. Of course, OceanGate did not respond to a request for comment. An attorney representing Lockridge in the 2018 suit said Lockridge had no comment, adding, "We pray for everyone's safe return." So these safety concerns have been there from the beginning, as early as 2018. I mean, it's shocking, and I feel, you think you just assume, and that's something we're going to talk about here very, very quickly here in a brief minute. This is just something that you assume is going on. You assume that when you contract on a bus trip, on a plane ride, for any type of tourism package, you just assume that the people that are running it are going to operate it safely, responsibly, and that they've done all of this testing. It's a perfectly avoidable tragedy. But, we are here, and this is where we are. I know that sounds very cliche to say something like that, but all right, we have to move on here. Nicholas Starov has also given us another. We've got to scroll up a little bit here to get to that. I didn't want to miss this, Nicholas. Yeah, OceanGate stocks imploded. Yes, they did. Thank you very much for that, Nicholas. Appreciate that. And Lincoln Kane, bring in the heat. Are we doing shots and getting drunk after this, bro? Lols. Just joking. Big day tomorrow. Well, we will talk about this. After we finish this, we're going to be automatically transferred over to my trial watch where things will be consumed. Thank you very much for the very, very generous chat, Lincoln Kane. Cheers to you, my friend. Well, okay. So this guy, one of their guys, said there's all of these problems that need to be addressed. Otherwise, we're facing these catastrophic situations. So where do we go from there? Well, OceanGate marked its vessel as safe, but experts say it used materials that simply didn't work. Big in this a little bit. It's maybe too big. Stockton Rush wore a hard hat and stood next to one of his submersible crafts last year, full of enthusiasm as he told a bunch of students about the thrills and perils of being a deep sea explorer. The key elements in any expedition is you got to be thinking what could go wrong. What can I do to mitigate that risk? Rush told the students via a live web stream prior to one of his voyages. Despite such planning, he conceded, something always bites you that you didn't expect. Well, implosion, I think you can expect that. That's a primary thing you would have to protect against. Rush, the CEO of OceanGate, said the pilot of the ill-fated Titan submersible that imploded this week, and the pilot, diving to the Titanic wreckage, understood the dangers of his endeavors. And his comments to the students seemed tragically prophetic. A U.S. Coast Guard official said Thursday authorities had begun to map the debris of his vessel about 1,600 feet from the Titanic wreck. However, since the catastrophe occurred in international waters, authorities are discussing how an investigation would unfold, the official said. But experts agree that any inquiry is sure to question the design of the craft, the materials used to build it, and whether Rush and his company should have done more to avert such a deadly outcome. A CNN review of OceanGate marketing material, public statements made by Rush, and a court record show that even as the company touted a commitment to safety measures, it rejected industry standards that would have imposed greater scrutiny on its operations and vessels. The company also boasted of collaborations with reputable institutions that have since denied partnering with OceanGate on the submersible in question. That's DNVGL we talked about a second ago. We're going to get to that real quick here. Some industry experts said OceanGate's operations were known to be risky. There was a company that was already defying much of what we already knew about the submersible design. Rachel Lance, a Duke University biomechanical engineer who had studied physiological requirements of survival underwater, said on CNN Thursday. She noted some of the vessel's design materials were already large red flags to people who have worked in the field. OceanGate declined comment on its safety record. Sure. One flashy promotional video last year opens with a voiceover boasting an unforgettable but safe voyage. OceanGate Expedition offers you the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be a specially trained crew member safely diving to the Titanic wreckage site. That video also features explorer Paul-Henri Nargeolet, who was among those who died this week, praising the design of the doomed vessel. The sub for me is very well done because it's simple, Nargeolet said. Usually they have lots of equipment with lots of switches, and on this one you don't have, because you work with a screen and a keyboard, and it's easy to do that. They highlighted the simplicity later. Yeah, that is craft. This is what I was talking about, the lighting, this little lighting thing that we see here in the middle. That light, he explained that it came from off-the-shelf stores such as Camping World. He bought this interior lighting from Camping World. Rush explained the Titan's unconventional design, which he said included carbon fiber to increase the vessel's buoyancy. It hasn't been used in a crewed submersible ever before, he said in a video last year. Maybe there's a reason for that. The Titan also included an unparalleled safety feature that monitored the integrity of the vessel's hull during each dive, according to the OceanGate's website. Now, again, this would have happened in milliseconds, if not a millisecond, a thousandth of a second. So what? You're down that far, you say, oh, and you're done. Something monitoring the integrity of the hull at those depths is going to be absolutely useless, I would imagine. And instead it had multiple redundant safety systems. But in a separate interview with Pogue, Stockton seemed dismissive of safety. At some point, safety is a pure waste, Stockton said. Words that may come back to bite the company in the ass, assuming they have any assets to be bitten. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed. Don't get in your car. Don't do anything. Two former OceanGate employees separately voiced safety concerns. David Lockridge, who we just talked about. And let's see, we just kind of went through this here. The type of acoustic analysis would only show when a component is about to fail, often milliseconds before an implosion, and would not detect any existing flaw prior to putting pressure onto the hull. That's what I was saying a little bit earlier. Court filings from OceanGate suggest there was additional testing after Lockridge left the company. It's unclear whether his concerns were addressed. OceanGate terminated his employment and sued Lockridge in 2018. Another former employee who worked briefly for the company as an operations technician during the same time period as Lockridge also had concerns about the hull's thickness and adhesion, he said, speaking to CNN on the condition of anonymity. Lance, the Duke University professor, echoed some of these concerns. She said the unconventional combinations of materials used in the Titan posed safety risks because over the course of repeated pressurizations, they tend to weaken. This is not exactly what, in my opinion, would be innovation because this is already a thing that has been tried and it simply didn't work. Let that sink in a little bit. And it's unclear how many total deep sea voyages the Titan took, though a court filing from the company advisor in November said a 5-person submersible had taken 28 people to the Titanic last year. They overstated their relationship with two institutions widely respected, Boeing and the University of Washington. Oh, yes, there was that. I forgot to mention that as well. OceanGate's website touted a partnership with Boeing, stating that his Titan was designed and engineered by OceanGate Inc. in collaboration with experts from Boeing and other entities. Similarly, OceanGate claimed in a 2021 court filing that the Titan was built with the help of University of Washington's Applied Physics Laboratory. Both Boeing and UW denied partnering with OceanGate in the development of the Titan. UW personnel did not provide any verification or validation of any OceanGate equipment as a result of those tests. Yeah, and the other people were saying that he was very safety conscious, but he appeared to enjoy pushing boundaries. While he sometimes spoke about exercising caution, he viewed industry standards as a roadblock to technological advancement, and that he had broken some rules to build the Titan. His company also alarmed industry veterans by declining to class the Titan, again with these two classification societies or others, a routine inspection process that would have provided a layer of oversight. You're taking on a lot of risk, and the risk you are taking might affect the entire industry, says the Marine Technology Society. That's the letter that I was talking about. We're going to be reading that. And we all know what happened, you know. We talk about signing a lengthy waiver detailing all the ways this trip could kill me. Asphyxiation, electrocution, drowning, crushing. Death was mentioned 3 times on the first page. I kissed my wife goodbye before I left, thinking I might never see her again. Well, let's take a look at this letter here. This is a pretty damning letter. Let me change the color scheme here so it's more visible. But first, we want to address this. Hold tight. Right. All right. We've got it. Never mind. Sorry. Bring this up. Whoop. That's not what I wanted. Go away. You can go now. Go back to your room. I wanted. Where did our letter go? Right, there we go. Got it. Sorry for the delay. This is the Marine Technology Society. This is to him on 2018, just a couple of months after all this lawsuit stuff started. This letter is sent on behalf of our industry members who have collectively expressed unanimous concerns regarding the development of Titan and the planned Titanic expedition. Our apprehension is that the current experimental approach adopted by OceanGate could result in negative outcomes from minor to catastrophic that would have serious consequences for everyone in the industry. The MUV industry has earned itself an enviable safety track record over the past 40 years. This is partly due to the diligent engineering discipline and professional approach exercised by members of the... I made that too big. Okay. Let me bring this up so y'all can read along here. Make it a little bit bigger for you. There we go. Right. by members of the industry, but also due to the collective observation of and adherence to a variety of safety standards. This reputation is solid because it was hard won over many years of diligence, application, and has resulted in safe and successful record of operation. Our members are all aware of how important and precious this standing is and deeply concerned that a single negative event could undo this. Your marketing material advertises that the Titan design will meet or exceed DNVGL safety standards. That's the classification society. Yet it does not appear that OceanGate has the intention of following DNVGL class rules. Yeah, so they say all of this is going to exceed DNVGL's safety standards, but DNVGL never inspected it. They didn't want that, apparently. Your representation is at a minimum misleading to the public and breaches an industry-wide professional code of conduct we all endeavor to uphold. We do all agree that a performance-based testing program for design verification is a recognized and valid approach to new technologies. However, we recommend that at a minimum, you institute prototype testing program that is reviewed and witnessed by DNVGL or ABS, that's the American Bureau of Shipping we talked about earlier. While this may demand additional time and expense, it is our unanimous view that this validation process by a third party is a critical component in the safeguards that protect all submersible occupants. Together, we are all beneficiaries of the excellent safety record of MUV operations over the years, but each one of us is also a steward with a responsibility to sustain this achievement. We would be grateful if you could confirm that OceanGate can see the future benefit of this investment in adhering to our industry-accepted safety guidelines and protocols for ultimate success and that of the MUV community. So that was a very strongly worded letter that went out. And we all know that he said he didn't want 50-year-old white guys on board because they weren't inspirational. He didn't want people with military experience because they're old. He didn't, he wanted to be attractive to the 16-year-old, the guys, the gamers, the Game Boys. He wanted those people, the future. I mean, to a certain extent, it's understandable, but still, you want the people with mission-specific expertise to be at least involved in the planning, in the design, in the construction, people who serve on submarines, people who work on submersibles, people who work in the underwater exploration industry, to be able to go, look, these are things we need to look at. These are things that are causing problems. These are things that are stupid AF that you don't want to be involved in. But he didn't want that. He had talked about how one person was a surfer. He hired another person who was a hammer thrower in college. I guess because they told good stories. I don't know. But he wanted a submarine that anybody could drive using this $30 game controller. He wants the team to be younger, to be inspirational. He said, I'm not going to inspire a 16-year-old to go pursue marine technology, but a 25-year-old, who's a sub pilot or a platform operator or one of our techs can be inspirational. Yeah, these are things that come back to bite you in the ass later. Now, there's a lot of people that mention the waiver. A lot of people say, "Oh, but they signed this waiver." We just talked about it. Mentioned death 3 times on the first page. They were waivers are not a magic shield. There's so many things you can argue to try to get around these blanket waivers. And of course, it all boils down to no one has seen this waiver yet. Nobody has a copy of this waiver that I'm aware of. It depends on the language of the waiver, what exactly was communicated to these people, what exactly they signed up for, what exactly they signed off on, what they were aware of, etc. All of these things are coming. I mean, they knew it wasn't a vacation. They knew this wasn't a sightseeing trip. They knew that there was a risk and that they were doing dangerous things. We know that. And I've likened this before to there's a difference between going to Yankee Stadium and assuming the risk. That's what they're calling it. You're assuming the risk. You've been advised of these risks and you agree that you're going to take the risk. That's going to Yankee Stadium, going to a baseball game and sitting down the foul line. You take a foul ball, someone hits a foul ball and you take it to the grill and it busts your face open. You take this line drive foul ball. You're not going to win in a lawsuit because you assumed the risk of attending an inherently dangerous sports activity, and that was a foreseeable accident. But if a player, if you sign this waiver, and look on the back of the ticket, they have all these boilerplate things. We're not responsible for any of this, that, or the other. Okay, that would cover the line drive to the face, generally speaking. But If one of the players got pissed because you said something and he walked up with a baseball bat and clocked you in the face with it, that's not a risk you assumed when you went to the baseball stadium. That's not a normal risk inherent in watching a baseball game. So that is where some of the waiver, where the cracks in the waiver start to happen. Was this something that's a routine risk that you're assuming? Were you aware of this? And we've heard and we read in some of these other articles that there were things going on that the average paying customer or paying client would not know about unless they were specifically told. Like, some of these, there was no stress testing done. There was none of these other things. These are things that they were likely not told, but we don't know because we don't have access right just yet to the signed waivers that I'm aware of. So it's all theory at this point. But as we come to the end, we talked about when this was known. The last two things I want to go back to talk a little bit more about the waiver, but then the big bombshell that came out of this was an article in the Wall Street Journal, and I can't bring this up, so I'm just going to have to read this read this cold, staring at the camera. The Navy said it shared its findings Sunday. This is the deal. The Navy said that they were aware. They heard the implosion hours after. The Navy has these listening posts everywhere in the ocean. So they said they heard it an hour, just hours after they started. A top secret military acoustic detection system designed to spot enemy submarines first heard what the U.S. Navy suspected was the Titan submersible implosion hours after the submersible began its voyage, officials involved in the search said. The Navy began listening for the Titan almost as soon as the sub lost communications, according to U.S. defense officials. Shortly after the submersible's disappearance Sunday, the U.S. system detected what it suspected was the sound of an implosion near the debris site discovered Thursday and reported its findings to the Coast Guard. So an hour and 45 minutes plus or minus into this voyage, the Navy picked up something they identified as an implosion, and they told the Coast Guard. They told the Coast Guard commander on site what they heard. And while the Navy couldn't say definitively the sound came from the Titan, the discovery played a role in narrowing the scope of the search for the vessel before its debris was discovered Thursday, the officials said. The U.S. Navy conducted an analysis of acoustic data and detected an anomaly consistent with an implosion or explosion in the general vicinity of where the Titan submersible was operating when communications were lost. While not definitive, this information was immediately shared with the incident commander to assist with the ongoing search and rescue mission. Officials decided to continue our mission, quote, as a search and rescue and make every effort to save the lives on board, the U.S. Navy statement said. The Navy asked that the specific system not be named, according to for national security issues and whatnot. Then they found the debris. The Coast Guard didn't immediately respond to requests for comment about what information it received and how it was used. See, and this is where we may have a bit of a problem. The United States Navy is not involved in the search and rescue business. That's the Coast Guard. And the Coast Guard, they will not declare the end of a search and rescue until they are absolutely certain that it happened, until they're absolutely sure it is no longer a search and rescue and it's a recovery. So I think there may be some miscommunication involved there, or the cultural communication may have been somewhat different, where they said, okay, great. We think this may have been an implosion, but we don't have 100% certainty yet. So we're going to still treat it as a search and rescue. And they didn't announce this. They didn't announce this until after. Of course, there's the conspiracy theorists that say that, the president of the United States, Joe Biden, told them not to release this because at the same time the Hunter Biden issue was going on until after all of that questioning was done. Which that's stupid. But for some reason, the Navy told the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard didn't release this information. I think that's a problem. They should have said, we picked it up this. It's not looking great. We're still holding out a ray of hope, but this is what we're doing. Rather than bringing up this, they had no confirmation that these reported sounds that they were hearing every 30 minutes. They just reported that as though these was a hopeful sign of life. The ocean is a noisy, noisy place. But they jumped on that and reported that as a hopeful sign, but they didn't report on any of the negative signs. such as an implosion shortly after they lost contact with the vessel. They should, I believe, have come out and said, this is what we picked up. It looks bad. We're still going to continue this until we have confirmation one way or the other, but where it's not looking hopeful, rather than give everybody a false sense of hope. And especially if you've already heard that it likely exploded or imploded, and then you still want to stick by this, oh, we heard some knocking sounds. I don't like that at all, but nobody asked me. But going back to the issue of liability and waivers, where does this get us? I mean, generally, this is just generally very, 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 very generalized speaking. There are ways to attack a waiver, and it all boils down to the facts. I mean, detailed, highly detailed facts. Jurisdiction. I would guess that somewhere in the documents they signed, there was a jurisdictional clause that said any claims arising from or in relation to this accident shall be governed exclusively by the laws of X country or X state and heard to the exclusive jurisdiction of the courts of Washington state, or the federal courts or the courts of England, etc., wherever, to the exclusion of all others and its appellate courts, something along those lines. So I'm sure I'm virtually certain that there would be a jurisdictional clause for bringing claims. But we don't know what that is. But depending on where people agreed to hear this, and if they didn't, there's a whole bunch of other laws and acts that will help work this out. There will be a jurisdiction. Just because it happened in international waters doesn't mean that no law applies. There are ways and there are applications. Normally, you'd go back to the place where it happened. If it happened in open waters and there's no other agreement, it would be the headquarters of the company that offered the service or something like that. We'll find the jurisdiction wherever it is. But according to the specific laws that will apply in that jurisdiction, or the laws that they agreed to apply, the standards for attacking the waivers might be different. So very, very broadly and generally speaking, to bring a wrongful death claim, you would have to prove that there was a duty of care, which there obviously was. You have a duty to provide a safe service, that there was a breach of this duty to care. Someone did something negligently, and that negligence was directly the direct cause of the damage and losses to the person. So you need some negligence or willful conduct, causation, and damages. I think all of those can be proven, but how do we attack the waiver? Operational negligence is a big one. Was there negligence in the design or operation of the vehicle? And we see there might have been a spec because some of Russia's remarks, we cut these corners, we did this, we did that. Operational negligence in the design or operation of the vehicle that the waiver would not cover, that these people would not have known of. There could be intentional fraud. You just flat out lie to people. That would be grounds for attacking a waiver. There's the assumption of the risk defense, but even if you assume the risk, if there's gross negligence, which is just severe disregard for any type of negative thing that happens, or recklessness, which is just unreasonably assuming risks that you shouldn't assume. A failure to warn of specific known dangers, which kind of goes back to what was being talked about with there were things wrong that they knew about that the average paying customer wouldn't know about. So if they're not told about those, there may be specific known dangers to that submersible that the average paying person didn't know about and may have made a different choice had they known about those risks. Were there violations of law? We don't know that yet. There's also an implied warranty of safety where you just imply that you're going to have a safe journey and you have a duty to do that. So all of these things, all of these waivers and stuff can be attacked, whether successfully or not. That would depend on the specific facts of the case and the specific laws of the governing jurisdiction over this place. So I hope as we come to the end here that this sort of answers a couple of questions and gives a little new light. We'll continue to address this as we go forward. And there's a couple of other things that we're going to be doing over the next couple of Maritime Mondays. We're going to be looking at two other cases. We're going to be looking at the Pisces 3, which was the deepest underwater rescue operation that's ever been successfully carried out. And we're going to look at another disaster involving an implosion of an undersea deep sea vehicle. We'll be talking about those over the next couple of weeks. And I know I promised that I would have one of my friends come here to talk about this and to talk about an underwater submarine incident he was involved in, but he was told, no, not until you retire from the Navy, my friend. He will be retiring in November, so then we'll get with him after that. All right, so before we go here real quick, I just want to address all of the backed up super chats and whatnot that have been here, and some of the other monthly membership things. So I appreciate you all being here. I'm sorry we don't have any great deep answers for you, but we just don't know much yet. We don't, and even if we can attack these waivers, we don't know if they have the assets to cover this or not. We just don't know. We'll continue to cover it as things develop. I promise. That's why I'm here. That's why I bring you Maritime Monday every Monday to talk about these issues. And Flux, thank you so much for Mochadik Poon XOXO, fully adjustable blow for freedom. What does shit mean? Muhaha. I'm going to seal my truck with Flex seal tape and see how that goes. Okay. And Durna 1804. You might die was a misleading waiver. You'll probably die would have been more accurate. Yeah. That's not an inaccurate statement. All right, and then we have a couple of other things here. We have, scrolling back through, Jason J., member of 3 months of the Clean and Sober crew, says, never got a notification. I'll be on Rewatch crew. And again, Rewatch crew, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe if it's something that you like to see here. And Lincoln Kane gifted 5 Legal Vices membership. Thank you so much for that, sir. And also, let's see here. He also did 5 more Legal Vices memberships. Thank you again for that, Lincoln Kane. Jason Gilman Jr., member for 7 months of the Clean and Sober crew. I like how the Navy heard the implosion and almost immediately, but nothing said about it until days later. Right, we talked about that. They told the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard said not to do it. Lincoln Kane dropping several Legal Vices memberships, 5, 10 more. Wolfram also gifted 5 Legal Vices memberships. Thank you so much. And Blue Varo, member for 3 months, left a comment. And another 5 Legal Vices membership from Lincoln Kane. Thank you so much, everybody. That's deeply appreciated. Stay tuned to my channel, Legal Vices, for more information as it becomes available, as we learn new things. Captain Have Fun, thank you so much for your $2 message of silence. Thank you. And Pin King, even a perfectly functioning sub can implode in any sort of minor issue. Yes, and that may be covered under waivers. We're just going to have to see how this plays out. And like I said, I will continue to cover this as it goes on. So what's going to happen now is we'll end this, and then we'll go immediately over to our trial coverage of the YNW Melly murder trial. And when you get there, let everybody know that's already waiting that I'm going to need about 5 minutes to get ready. Thank you, mods. Thank you for chat. Thank you. The Vice Squad Legal Vices chat is the best chat. Appreciate your generosity. Hit the like and subscribe on your way out. We're on our way to 50,000 subscribers. Take care, everybody. Doral on at the last second, giving the €5 heart. Thank you so much. This is your Lorax now, Legal Vices, saying thank you for being here. We will see you next week for another episode of Maritime Monday. And right now, let's go check out a trial or two. Thank you for being here. We'll see you again.